All right, everybody, welcome back. Hello, I am the human advocate advocating for humans, and we are going to be tuning into our second part of Dear Vivek by Sam Hyde today. Uh, Quite some good intellectual commentary thus far. I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to getting back into another session of insight with Mr. Samuel Hyde over here. So let's just switch over and get on into it. Here we go. All right, let's do it.
You can demand more from your environment, basically, because you're good at something. You look for reasons not to fire somebody who's really good at something. You look for reasons not to fire somebody that's making you money or is solving problems that you don't like dealing with. You look for reasons to keep them happy in their job. And if they're not bringing money to the table or helping you out or solving problems, then it doesn't matter. You don't really care what their life is like. Because what the fuck, what are you even doing here? You get paid $8 an hour to be a human toilet. Or here, put the cheese on this pizza. You dummy. A lot of problems can be solved by getting good at something, making your time worth more money.
True.
Yo, what up, Sammy? I'm cooking dinner for my children right now. What's on my mind is my present to my children. They want to see snow. I live in Florida. I'm renting a truck and driving all the way up so these kids can see snow. I took days off of work for this, and it's not looking good, man. I can't even give my kids the one thing they ask me. Maybe it's a big ask, but I don't think so. What happened to the time in America where taking a vacation didn't literally fuck you? It fucks you, dude. You take a vacation and you're like, all right, I gotta be eating ramen for the next 2 months because I took my kids on fucking vacation. I have a mortgage. I have 2 children. I don't have a great job.
What children really need is they need to be loved, which is that's not a financial thing. They don't need to financially be loved.
Yeah.
Okay, there are plenty of people who grew up poor and had a happy enough childhood because their parents were present. Okay? Love and financials have nothing to do with each other. They're really not related. The other thing they need is to not be abused. Part of not being abused is not being in a public school surrounded by the Catholic Church gets so much, that's like every...
I mean, it's kind of true. If your kids will be more successful now than any other time in history if you choose to do homeschooling or something outside of the public school system. And I say this as someone who's friends with people that are professors and teachers. And they cope with it. They do well with what they have, but the system is not meant to be supportive for creation of your own life and your own benefit. The school system, as it is designed, as it is developed, is based off of a Prussian model, and I might have talked about this in my other video, but it's based off of a Prussian model, which was made to impress upon those who were in the system the importance of following orders, being obedient, being on time, clocking in and clocking out, basically. No surprise there that it's also a system that is useful for clocking in and clocking out of a time clock of which you question nothing about your boss, nothing about the system of which you are supposed to be a part, and you go home and then you come back and you do it all again the next day, and you create nothing for yourself in doing that besides a paycheck, a way to live. And I think I also said this last video, is that creation is the birthright of every American, is the ability to create. It should be easier to create. It should not be difficult to create something. And we have made it where the creators, the system that we've made, punishes creation and incentivizes copying, theft, and moral degeneracy. And you will not get a society out of that. You will not create any good outcomes out of that. What you will do is you will create slaves. You will create drones. You will create people that follow your every rule, whim, and order until the time comes where they finally realize there's a better life out there. which is why China is very good at what they do, because they can suppress every other opinion coming from the outside world and say, you have it the best because we've given you no other option to appeal to any other person on earth. So you're either left with us or you've got nothing. So what's it going to be? And that's the direction that we're headed. So that's what public school system encourages. That's what a majority of the education indoctrination system is all about. So yeah, if you want to have better outcomes for your children, definitely try and invest in homeschooling, public schooling, or not public schooling, private schooling. Obviously, it's difficult financially. I understand that. I get that. But if you have the means and the time to do that, and homeschooling is a lot easier than you think. There's definitely programs out there that made it easier. And if you look at the statistics, homeschooling has only been increasing in popularity with the American public. So there's really not a reason that you shouldn't give it. You could give it the old college try. Give it a chance. See what you can do. And you'll be surprised that your kid will probably be more engaged with you and what you're telling them than what any random person at a school could probably tell them. So yeah, go with that.
Not so much now. I mean, but in the 90s and 2000s, every stand-up comedian was like, "Oh, you're Catholic? That's good to child molestation." To whatever degree that's true, it's way worse in synagogues.
Yeah.
And fucking public schools. I think public schools have a 10x higher rate of child abuse than Catholic Church. So if you're going to be scared of something, you should be scared of public schools.
Yeah.
What you need to provide for your children
Good point.
is protection from pharmaceuticals, protection from rapists and bullies, and love, which is not a monetary thing. You just just be a normal human being. That's not a fucking.
And that's another good point, is that a lot of people think, to raise a good family, you have to have a good financial support network, which, can be true. But if your kid, they don't understand, you have to understand that a kid has no idea what money is. A kid has no idea what those kinds of things are. As long as you can provide the basic necessities of life, which is, food and shelter and all those kinds of things, and you tell them that that's what you're trying to do, like you're doing the best that you can, they'll come to understand or realize, even if it's not at that time, that you are doing the best that you can. And most children will grow up like that. Will come to the conclusion that my parents did the best they could with what they had, and I'm all better for it because I realize that what I need to do in order to make it in this world. And I'm not saying like they should struggle or they should be without anything, or you should live an Amish kind of secluded monk lifestyle for your children. But yeah, I mean, finances aren't everything for a family. Love is very important. I can tell you, as someone who had a family, was very financially, we were, I would say middle class. There were things that we had to sacrifice, and there were times where we could go on excursions, and it was great to have that balance. But probably what I wanted more than anything would have been for, my parents to both be more available in whatever capacity it was. And maybe that's your case, maybe it's not. Maybe you had plenty of it, which is good on you if that's the case. But I would say in today's society, we've encouraged families to step away from being families and preoccupy their time with chasing after material wealth and everything. Of course, TV commercials have done us no favors in attracting children's minds towards things that they don't really need, that are flashy and on screen and all that kind of stuff. But which I think there's probably an argument there for not advertising to children in any capacity, or using them for any kind of labor, or putting them in Hollywood or anything that has to do with that, because that world is not something to be involved with. It is more imperative that they grow up knowing what love is and knowing that they are taken care of and cared for. That's probably the most important thing that a child can grow up and get out of childhood with, is knowing I'm loved and I am supported. And knowing those two things, everything else can come after that. They can figure it out on their own. They can understand that there's a support network for them, that they can do it regardless of what the circumstances of the world are. And that is an important point. And I think that's a great point that Sam makes there. So,
freak, I guess. There's probably a book about it. I don't know how to teach you to not be a freak, but it's probably essential that you start learning how to do that. Stefan Molyneux has talked a lot about peaceful parenting, not hitting your children. I didn't know people hit their children until I... Hitting
some Stefan Molyneux. That's some good stuff. I could do some reaction to that. I like Stefan Molyneux. I would like to be at a point where I could, be more financially dependent or independent, where I could support him financially. But after all the stuff that happened with getting banned from Twitter and all that stuff, I still see him on Rumble, and he still has very good stuff on deep dives and interesting subjects and talking with people and counseling. I don't know, call it counseling, just going into histories and really getting at the root of the problem. And the problem with society today is that we don't get at any roots of any problems. We diagnose symptoms, which is what the medical industry does, which is what people do, which is what advertising does, which is what education does. These are all things that don't really solve much in a way that matters in a long-term sense. They are window dressing on a society that is only held up by its past. And you have to believe in your past to support your future. And right now we are at a very low point of supporting or believing in our past. So that's what I've got to say on that.
Started meeting like regular glop people, like people that look like some fucking cigarette lady. She looks like she should be compressed in a barrel into oil to lubricate train parts. That's probably the most useful, the most valuable use of this human biomass I'm looking at right here. Asking me for a light. You should be lubricating a train as human goo.
Turn down, I'm sorry.
You fucking freak. But those people like that have had the shit beat out of them as children. This is probably
that's true. That's the worst thing.
Major reason why the world is this like throbbing, chaotic, violent organism from hell at times and in certain locations. That's one of my big regrets. Is I was at a Home Depot and there was a black guy and he was talking to his kid and he goes, "Am I gonna have to put hands on you?" This was before I was started lifting weights or boxing or anything, but I really wish I had given that guy a talking to. But I think this is probably a big reason why the world can at times appear to be so schizophrenic and cancerous. Yeah. But right. All you have to do to be a good parent is protect your kids from that type of shit. I think that going overboard with the violin lessons and tutoring. What are you tutoring? Vivek, black Vivek. First of all the jobs that the Indians are coming here for, aren't they going to be done by AI?
The frickin' fire alarm battery signal.
Anyway?
Fuck.
Huh? I thought computers were so smart they could learn to code by now. Huh? That's weird. Why are we bringing in more software engineers when writing software is one of the low-hanging fruits of LLMs that's actually going to be here in 5 years? Easy. Why do you need 400,000 brownies? Why do you need all those brownies? What are you even preparing your kids for anyway? You're just some shithead. What do you know about what life's going to be like in 30 fucking years?
Yeah.
My child is going to be a doctor. What if doctor is completely automated away and becomes like a customer service role in
Right.
30 years.
Right.
The AI can
Like, that's the thing. Like, I think Vivek is trying to like future-proof society based on everything that he already knows about society, which, you know, seems to be not as much as we previously thought. And this is the problem with those technocrats, is that they're always on this bandwagon of let's future-proof society, let's future-proof the world, let's and that is the way of utopianism. And utopianism is anti-human and is anti-American and is anti-life, essentially, because every life has its ups and has its downs, and everyone should know that. But you should also have an equilibrium. It shouldn't always be a downward trajectory. There should be stuff that encourages you to go upwards as well. And with hard work and with that, with your support network, you should be able to reach a point of satisfaction. You don't always need to be striving for every single thing, because in life you don't get every single thing. And this is what Vivek thinks, I believe. I think that he thinks that we have to keep striving constantly, honestly, forever. And that's not the case. I think what you would find is that you'll find that in a group of normal people, one or two will come out of that group and will say, I would like to strive for something more or better than this. And then from all of those people, let's just say you've got a town of 100, and then you've got two. I mean, you could extrapolate that into like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, but you take those two people and they can elevate your community or your village or your town or your society or your country higher than any person would be doing if everyone was trying to reach for the same scrap of pie on the metaphorical, technologically advanced chart. The thing about advancement is that it comes naturally. It comes from people that are dissatisfied, but are okay. They're okay where they are, but they're dissatisfied with how a current process is. Very rarely, I would say, you're going to find people that are constantly striving, always trying to get this final piece of pie, like car salesmen, to invent anything. Because all they can look at, they have this tunnel vision that is always looking at, there's only one thing I can grab onto. There's one possibility. There's only one outcome. And that's not the case. Sometimes to solve a problem, you have to go back to square one. Technical advancement and achievement doesn't necessarily require going back to square one. It sometimes is a self-reinforcement mechanism that brings you into a tunnel of thought of which you just can't escape. And that's the problem with kind of, I think, Vivek's philosophy. So,
diagnose medical conditions better than humans can. How long is it going to be until the role of doctor is downgraded to basically customer service till you're the human face in the office?
Right, like if there is just a doctor just sitting there, just like, if you've ever seen Idiocracy, there was like, yeah, here's these buttons, press these buttons. Like, that's who's to say we won't end up like that? Who's to say that AI won't be doing all of that kind of stuff, and then a doctor would be there, and then your degrees over years and years and years of all this training and expertise could be done by a robotic hand that already knows the routines precisely, can measure diameters, heart palpitations, all these kinds of things, and could be done remotely and cheaper than a human could ever do it. What do you do with the whole bunch of doctors and nurses that have studied years and years and years for this to happen? You've encouraged these people to go down one path, and you've said this one path, this is how we got to where we are now, is the way to success. And you can't engineer success from the top down. You can't engineer success by saying everyone needs to follow this route to get to success, to be a technical wizard. That's not how you encourage success. Success is measured individually. It's measured individually by each person. They have their own measure of success. Not one person's success will be another person's success. One person, like a priest having millions of dollars, would you call a priest that wants to be a priest having millions of dollars necessarily a success? I don't know. I probably wouldn't. Would you call a car mechanic that is a pilot a success? Like he grew up, he wants to be a car mechanic his whole life, and somehow he got to be a pilot, and now he's like has to do a pilot because the state requires him to be a pilot? No, I'm not sure I would call that a success. A success for the state, maybe. A success for those who run society, sure. But for the individual, for the person that is on the ground trying to extrapolate all these things for themselves and figure out how they fit in the world, it is not success. And you can't define that by this small, narrow path. So you have to figure that out on your own. And you ask a lot of successful people, and you ask them, how do you become successful? And they'll say, I don't know. You got to figure it out. Because the only way that you can understand that you've made it is when you understand that you've made it, not based on anyone else's understanding of making it. And there you go. So, moving on.
Making sure the machine doesn't fuck up and you're getting paid 1/3 of what you were making. We're talking about preparing your child for the future, giving them the best life possible. What school on the face of the planet has taught students how to preserve wealth and how to make money, which is day trading and gambling?
That's it. Like, we don't teach. Okay, I mean that's a good point as far as like, yeah, technical skills. Like, you know how to day trade, and you should know how to gamble, and you should know how to steal and work the system and make it work for you. Because if we actually taught those things, society fall apart pretty damn quick. Because then. But the problem is we're not being honest with what society has become. We say it's all about good work, honesty, hard work, working towards the next better tomorrow, and the real way that people acquire wealth seems to be in ways that aren't in that direction. And then you find that people that are trying to go in this direction of hard work that's been sold to them by government, society, everything, corporations, is actually not the case. And then you have societal breakdown because people are like, well, fuck this. I'm going to go into Bitcoin mining. I'm going to do things that are outside the system. I'm going to do all these things because you guys have tried to fuck me over. And you're going to have problems. Long-term problems.
University program does that. Well, the people that are getting pumped out of the schools, the best schools are leaving with $500,000 of debt. They're unhireable. They're being replaced by towel heads anyway. So what are you preparing your kids for? My son Benjamin's going to be going to a private school where he will learn how to do math. Like you would fucking know what's going to be worth money in 40 years.
Exactly.
Shithead. Like you would know.
Exactly. And this is exactly what I'm saying. This is exactly how it's supposed to go. Like, you can't predict success. You cannot predict success on 100% scale. And if you tell someone, like, this is the only way that you can be successful, don't be surprised when people start to argue with what your definition of success is. Don't be surprised, Vivek, when everyone doesn't want to be a math Olympiad champ. Not everyone can be a jock either, to be fair. But not everyone needs to be a math Olympiad champ or Steve Urkel either.
The way you probably prepare your kid for the future is by teaching them how to be a streamer or whatever, fitness influencer. You would literally probably be better prepared for the future.
That's probably actually true. That's actually probably true, because the way that we still, again, have this whole system based on an abstract idea of obedience, and listening to authority will get you on the path to success. And only in the military does that seem to be the case. We are not beings that are meant to just follow orders for the rest of our natural born lives and grind ourselves to bones and dust. We are people that are meant to create our own fortunes, our own possibilities, and our own futures for ourselves and for our countrymen and for our posterity. It is not someone else's definition of what that posterity should be for them and their wallets. It is for us and our children and our future. And this is what these technocrats miss.
Sure. If you are a fucking fitness influencer, then whatever boneheaded thing you think you're going to send your kid to college for, you go up to see snow and you don't see any, and your kids are disappointed. And hopefully 20 years later, what they remember is something like, my dad, who cooks for us, loved us so much, he drove us up to see snow, and we didn't see any, but it was crazy. It was a really fun weekend. We saw a lot of stuff. And
It's true.
That's a good outcome. The bad outcome would be, this is like a knife sticking out of people's heads. And I'm not saying this guy's like this, but I know if you're complaining, there's a chance you're like this. When you're not resilient and you're outcome dependent, you're attached on good outcomes, you need a good outcome to feel good. This is different from the Teletubby people who are...
That's so good. Like, what he's saying is so spiritually linked. Like, in order to live a good life, a lot of spiritualists, a lot of people will be like, you need to be detached from the outcome and you need to enjoy the journey, enjoy the experience, enjoy the time that you are currently in, because that is the only way that you actually mature your soul and for those people around you. If you're attached to an outcome like going to work every day and I'm going to make this amount of money and I'm going to dedicate it to this amount of thing and planning and constant this and that, like that's important for a survival mindset. But if you want to thrive, if you really want to thrive and you want your children to thrive, you should teach them that outcomes in the grand scheme of things are not as important as the journey for the person going after the objective. Now, in rules and law and regulations, yeah, you take outcomes as the intended effect. You don't take intentions as the intended effect. Government is the only place where that really has to be the inverse, even though it's run by people who have all those kinds of ideas, because that is what sets laws and safety and all those kinds of things for society to function. But society should be outside of outcomes. Society should be okay with pursuing things that don't necessarily pay off. That's how you know you have a healthy society, when you can pursue things and it doesn't pay off and you're not totally destitute by trying to go into that thing. You need to understand that life is about experience and trying and failing and doing the best you can with what you've got. That doesn't mean we should make it any harder for people trying to do the best they can with what they've got, but we certainly should be okay with people doing the best they can with what they've got. And we don't need to predict the future in order for that to be happiness. So,
are liars and fags anyway, and they're like, oh, guess we didn't get to see any snow. Oh, well, it's just as good. That's bullshit. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when you don't get a birthday present or whatever, it doesn't psychologically shatter you. If you go drive up to see snow and you don't see snow and your kids are in the back seat and at some point you're driving and you're like, I can't fucking believe we didn't see any snow. Drove all this way, we had to eat ramen. Fuck! That's going to ensure that your kids have the same knife in their head that makes them retarded. Attitude is everything, bro.
I'm sorry, I had to pause. That's absolutely true. it's you have to enjoy the moment. It doesn't matter if, it sucks in your mind And you gotta you make lemons out of lemonade. I mean, that's what you do. And if you don't want to inflict psychological damage on your progeny, definitely big distinction there. You don't need your children to be a progeny. Then that's fine. That's okay. Just as long as you're not inflicting pain on them, you're not carrying the childhood trauma with you from your childhood of expecting outcomes and visiting it on your children. You have to make the conscious effort to be like, that stops here. I'm not going to perpetuate that any further. And that's how you guarantee your children have the best possible futures.
You have to have an all-terrain personality. You have to be ready for.
And this is a good point here that he just said. An all-terrain personality. What is an all-terrain personality? That's probably someone who's been in multiple disciplines, who has been through multiple situations and has handled them in a way that I like the way he worded that. Like, if you were a street vehicle, like if you equated yourself to being a vehicle and you had tires that were only for the street and you decided, oh, I might need to take a shortcut through the backwoods in order to get to where I need to go a little quicker, but you didn't outfit yourself. You're not ready for that. You don't want to go down that road. You gotta, have some experiences that are outside of what your expectations are. I wouldn't expect a CEO to be comfortable driving in the back roads, to go anywhere. And I don't want to be a CEO. I don't want to be an ant. I want to be a queen bee. I don't want to be an insect. I want to be a human being that can experience multiple different things at multiple different places at multiple different times. And that's what Vivek and that's what a lot of the technocrats want to take away from the human experience. They think they can just boil it down into numbers. And you won't have to deal with any of the harsh realities of things. Well, God will come and say, ha, no, you don't. No, you don't. That's just how it works. That's how the universe works. You don't get to laugh in God's face and say, I have planned for everything and made everything in my image and my way, and there's nothing I can do to stop me or my dreams. Then God will go, come again, my fine human friend, because that's just how it works. You get so wrapped up in an outcome, you create a self-fulfilling prophecy of self-defeat sometimes, because there's only one way it can go. And if your qualifications for success are, I can't go down this road because my experience says I can't go down this road of the all-terrain. I can't do the all-terrain. I have to go down the road. I have to go down the street of the path that I am on. Then you're going to be fucked. Because what if there's a dead end and then you have to turn around at the end of that street? What if you have to reset to level 0? You have to go back to the beginning of the road where the fork was. You don't know. You don't know that. There's no way. There's no possible way that you could know that in life. So you've got to be ready for different possibilities and different outcomes. It's the only way it's possible to live as a human and to live and experience all that there is to experience. Moving on.
For whatever comes, because there's bad stuff coming. That's a lot of it, actually. There's actually a lot of bad stuff coming. So you need to be ready for it. It sounds like you're a good dad.
I don't want to, go on the doom pill there, but yeah, there definitely is bad stuff coming. I think with Trump, we might have bought ourselves a couple of years, maybe even a decade, potentially, if it works out well enough. But the entropy of the world and of those who hate humanity is very, very strong. And I want there to be a path of where people start to realize their own light and their own creativity and their own possibilities, But in the case that that doesn't happen, you should be prepared and have experienced as many different things as possible to make yourself as valuable as possible in a world that is basically turned upside down. Not in a world of which you know today, but in a world of which you don't know what's left, what's right, what's up, what's down. You got to be hardened and prepared for that kind of thing in a kind of survival mode, but also a mental mode and an emotional mode and a spiritual mode. And you have to prepare all three of those elements to be prepared for the future. To prepare in one way, like mentally, like Vivek wants to do, will not cut it. It will not cut it. Spiritually will probably be the strongest one if you were to focus on one. Building your relationship with God, with yourself, understanding your mission and your purpose, not distracting yourself every day through escapism and all those kinds of things. You can relax, of course, but escapism to a point of self-destruction is not going to be helpful to you in the future. Building a support network, building a community will be important. So do focus on that. And yeah, I agree with them. There's bad stuff coming. Hopefully later, so we have more time to prepare. Could be sooner. Who knows? But you gotta prepare and get yourself ready for that all-terrain mindset, like he said. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna keep using that.
You're cooking dinner for your kids. Just don't let them see you get rattled by little inconveniences like this, because there's a lot worse shit coming down the line. If you're in Florida, the Tony Montana mansion is located in Miami. It reportedly has a large pile of snow on the main office desk. The other thing is, like, the people that flip out all the time, you don't remember them as being impressive or powerful or anything like that. You just remember them as being weak and like disrupted by anything that happens.
This is a good point.
Oh, great. I didn't get my birthday present again? I've asked for since June.
No, dude.
That's a great point too. I mean, yeah, when you think about people that are in that mindset of like, I'm so attached to the outcome, I can't think of anything beyond it. Do you think they're powerful people? Do you think they're strong people? Or do you come away with the understanding that this guy just could not survive? I don't know how he got to the position that he did. Must have been through nepotism, which is more than likely, or favoritism from some entity or something else. He certainly didn't do it on his own through hard work, because if it was through hard work, if it was through understanding, he wouldn't be complaining nearly as much about something as small as, a birthday present or seeing snow when it's, supposed to be there. You gotta detach from outcomes.
I'm 36. I do manual labor. My back hurts. My knees pop. The thing about money, man, it's about taking care of your community, man.
Yep.
You got to keep your world small.
Yeah.
Less than 100 people.
Yeah.
Anything outside of that is where all these eggheads and all these people who get paid to think and don't think very well, it's where they get it confused.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid. If you go the manual labor route,
I think that's true. In today's world with social media and everything else that's available as far as distractions, it's so easy to widen your social net and just have fair weather followers, people that will stick by you only for as long as you are useful to their ends, which, I guess that's the whole crux of humanity and civilization. But there is still something to be said of having a community of which you can trust, of which you can put your support into, and it's not dependent upon an outcome, like we just said. It's dependent upon you having a solid understanding and presence in your community of support, and you being there for them and them being there for you, and this understood non-contractual needs to be written kind of agreement. It is more about you coming and being there and them being there for you. The smaller your community is, the easier it is to get a support network of those people and support them that will also come to support you. And I say this as someone who hasn't had many, I guess you would say, friends. I mean, I've kept a pretty small network of friends, people I constantly talk to, high school and college. But I'm a pretty, pretty introspective, pretty okay with being by myself kind of guy. And I make do. But I think, I could definitely say for people that have more than 100 people that are actually they would consider friends, that gets to be like, okay, how highly valued am I? I mean, it's scarcity and supply, right? Like, do they need me because they actually agree with me and want me to be inside their social network and value my opinion, or am I just another number on a social scale that they can chalk up on their data sheets? That's not something you want to view yourself as. It's not someone you want to be around. It's not an energy that you want in your life. So,
which is certainly not a bad route to go.
Talk about manual labor.
I think there's a lot of money to be made doing the manual labor stuff. You have to protect your body. You cannot be blowing your knees and your back out at 36.
Yeah.
You got to just figure out how to move good. Don't cheap out on footwear. For the love of God, don't cheap out on footwear. Don't wear lumbar braces and knee braces, but you should be probably weightlifting, actually, honestly, to protect yourself, to build muscle around the joints that are problematic. Don't jump from 4 feet out of an excavator because you can. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Look at the way old guys move on construction sites and just move like that.
I'm from Long Beach, Texas, and after this whole H-1B...
And you do have to take care of your body. Health is important, and it goes with physical, mental, emotional health. You can't just treat your body like shit. That goes for eating, and that goes for physical exercise and balance with all those kinds of activities. It might be cliche, but your body is a temple, and you should honor it like that. You are a soul present in the body, and you owe it to yourself for your own respect to your body, to yourself, to treat it as best as possible. Not just because you can do something, as I did, because I broke my femur trying to bike in the rain because I was an idiot on an electric bike, and I thought, I'm young, I can do whatever. I don't need to take a taxi. I don't need to take a bus. I can just do it in the rain, save myself, I don't know, it was $2. I don't know, like $10. And now, of course, hospital bills go along with that. I didn't have insurance. I've got all those kinds of things to take care of. I'm not begging for money here, but I'm just telling you, like, as 32-year-old, he's 36. Yeah, you definitely want to take care of your body, whether you're young and whether you're old and you still have the ability to do that. Definitely do that. So please do. You don't want to end up in a situation where where you take it for granted and then it's gone. And I've learned that myself. So I'm more respectful of my body now, certainly.
Situation, I decided to look up my city, and I discovered that despite having a lot of qualified people, we've got a huge nationally acclaimed university in town. They just can't seem to find any software engineers, which is ridiculous. I'm maybe the only local in the entire area who's a software engineer who's been employed as one. And I got a lot of other people who graduated alongside me a couple years back who can't feed their families. So what I'm doing is I am emailing them. I'm calling these companies up and I'm emailing them, and I'm trying to get these resumes out. And I'm trying to convince them that they don't need to literally replace Texans with whoever from whatever country. I don't really know what else I'm supposed to be doing here. Hopefully y'all can think of something and then talk about it, because I really don't want to build a Killdozer. I've got the capability, but I don't necessarily want to. It takes a lot of time. I really would rather be doing other things. Peace from Texas.
Instead of a Killdozer, start thinking electric.
Yeah.
Okay? Like Elon. Start thinking futuristic, electric, Tesla style. What's the Tesla version of a Killdozer? Some sort of apparatus attached to an Indian man's head in my basement that turns into a potato chip. Think bigger.
Great.
Think mega weapon. Okay, think Mad Max. Think Metal Gear.
Yes.
All right, how can you start using
Metal
electricity
Gear.
and drones to create a mega weapon version of the
Metal
Killdozer?
Gear.
What would that look like to you? I think it would be pretty cool. It's looking pretty grim for software, man. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to do. I don't think emailing people and asking them nicely to stop hiring Indians is going to help. If what I did was software right now, I would be worried. And I would be frantically trying to think of how to assemble some type of 5-year plan to like monetize my skills in a way that doesn't involve being a middle guy at a huge company.
Wow.
Sam Hyde, my name is
Vivek Ramaswamy.
I've been in IT for over 25 years. I'm mid-tier, like tier 2, tier 3. People don't know this, but the H-1B visas have now flipped the script. Because of federal law, when East Indian companies bring over H-1B visas, they now have to make the approved rate for that position. So let's say a position is $35, $45 an hour.
Yeah.
The East Indian recruiters that get the first dibs at these jobs will offer it to an American. They'll say, this job requires 8 to 10 years experience. I'll pay you $15 to $18 an hour. And then when the American says, I can't live off of that. I'm an engineer. Like, this is a $35, $45, $65 an hour job.
Right.
They say, well, that's the rate we're going to offering you. And as soon as they decline, they go and pull another H-1B visa, and they get the $35, $45, $65 an hour wage. So it's no longer that H-1B visas are a slave class. They're basically dominating the IT world, and they're not doing high-end jobs. They're literally doing every job in between. The nepotism is so crazy on this that the H-1B visa engineers will get their wives to work mid-tier jobs, and they don't know anything. And they basically screw everything up, and then we got to like tell them how to do everything step by step like a recipe. But they don't understand why they're doing what. And they get 100% of the wage, and they don't do any of the work. They end up just telling people, reboot your computer, and then they close out the ticket. How do I know that this is going on? When you work in IT, you have a lot of friends that are East Indians and things like that, and they tell me, we're trying to bring these people in, and we got to offer the Americans one wage, and then we pay whatever the approved rate is for the people that they bring in.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
I'm still sort of flabbergasted over the Elon and the Vivek Twitter thing where they are proposing that this basically rape of America is somehow related to kids who practiced the piano more as children and didn't. The most fucking, the gayest part of the whole thing that Vivek did was he said we need more movies like Whiplash.
Yeah.
Vivek suggested we need more movies like Whiplash.
I want to speak on that for a second. Whiplash is not a movie you want to emulate in any respect. It's, I mean, I could pull up the plot summary, but as far as I know about it, I've never seen it myself, but I've read the plot summary. It's basically about a guy, kid who goes to be in a band, and he is just physically constantly abused, trying to get the best, most precise thing for a teacher, for his music teacher. And I think at the end, it's implied that the student commits to himself, and he's worked like constantly abused like the whole way through. He gets a decent music review score thing from a panel of people, but he subjugated his own soul, his own life, in order for that to be possible, for the pleasure of one man who demanded perfection. And perfection is not life. Perfection is just that. It's perfection. Life and perfection are not equal. They are not things that go together. Human beings are imperfect. Life is imperfect. The human experience is imperfect. Never needed to be perfect. That's why we're here. is so we can realize that perfection is not the end goal of life. It's okay to accept ourselves as we are. We don't have to be wild. We don't need to be beasts on the ground that devour and rape and pillage, but we also don't have to be high achieving, technically minded savants in order for life to be worth living. It can just be, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Why the American dream failed is because we don't abuse our children into becoming obsessive musicians. This is more
Yeah, that's not true.
plundering, pillaging. It's the rape of America.
Yeah.
Continue.
The American dream didn't fail because we failed to make people behave like we did in Whiplash. The American dream failed because we lost touch with what is common sense and the common man and taking care of your community and understanding needs and supporting each other. We gave that up because we had the promise of a meritocracy-based world of which everyone was going to behave by the same rules. The same rules, where if we said, you don't get to behave in this way, you don't get to have your in-group preferences, then other people don't have to have in-group preferences either. And they will work and they will come out and we'll see where the chips may fall. And we said, okay, I'm okay with that. That sounds fair. That sounds honest. That sounds upstanding. And then the government went behind our backs and said, actually, you don't get to have in-group preference, but they do. And because of that, you are actually lower on the totem pole now, and it is actually moral and just and right to replace you with people that we give preference to because of injustices of which your ancestors were a part. That's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Everyone has pasts and histories and ancestors that have raped and pillaged and murdered and killed and enslaved every other person on this earth. No one is without sin. And we're not okay with it. I'm not okay with going down this road of you are without sin and you have all the sin. And that is the route that we are going down, a religious fervor of trying to blame one group or the other. And that's not okay. If we're going to have in-group preferences, everyone gets to have in-group preferences. Not just some people get to have in-group preferences, because then that unbalances the entire structure. So that is it. That is what we asked for. That's not in the agreement. That's not what's being processed as of right now. And so we have a right and a duty to argue against it because it is unfair. It is unfair on its face. And that's all it is. Unfairness. And we, as a people, as Americans, what we hate, perhaps more than anything, why the civil rights system, civil rights era was so successful is because we saw there was an imbalance. Americans appreciate a balance of things. What we don't appreciate is when we are promised balance and in its place it is replaced with imbalance. And we're slowly realizing that now. That is going to come to an end. And if it doesn't come to an end, we are going to meet some very bad times as a people. And they have to be prepared for that. So it's not about embracing Whiplash as the new model of American society. It's about embracing what made the 80s good and making America believe in itself and faith and trust and community. It's not about striving for the rest of your life. Thank you.
It's hitting the tech sector for the first time that's publicly visible, at least to me. I don't know. Is there any way to fight back? Could these software guys do a class action lawsuit? Is the racial nepotism provable?
hope so.
Is the racism in the hiring process provable? I mean, what did Cognizant pay? They did prove that there was racism in the hiring process with Cognizant. We're watching our future slip away. It's hard to see a way forward that doesn't involve
Voting.
Hey, Sam. I just quit and moved out of Microsoft after being there for 10 years. One time in the Redmond campus at Microsoft, I was there with my two friends at a Indian buffet, and I see these people come in, a whole family, and I was happy that they were there, good for them, whatever. And they start, like, scooping shit up with their hands, no utensils or anything like that, and I'm like, cultural difference or whatever. Looking back at it, both of those friends lost their job, and they were replaced by those type of people. I sound like a fucking racist asshole. I'm not trying to be. What I'm trying to say is, like, that's not America. I'm America. Those two friends were America. You were spot on, man. And I'm just a little irritated with what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, there are standards, and we have them for a reason, because there is a culture that we are familiar with and we understand and is good and perpetuates a system of trust and honesty of, I don't know where your hands have been, so what I would prefer is for you to use utensils in getting something and bringing it to me. Because, you know, I trust that you will do that you will use those things and you will not bring me something that is substandard. But you can't do that kind of thing and have a place and hire people and bring people in like that don't adhere to those things and expect that, yeah, those guys are Americans too. Those guys are Americans too, even though they didn't adopt the smallest, simplest thing that you could possibly adopt as becoming a part of society, of the society of which you decided to immigrate and to become a part of, is using utensils. You headstrong, stubborn son of a bitch. You don't get to do that and call yourself an American. I'm sorry. The one thing that Americans like and enjoy is using utensils. We like to use utensils at barbecues and eating out. If it's a hamburger, we pick it up with our hands. Some people eat them with forks and knives. But most things people are going to use utensils for. We're not going to scoop it up off the plate and shove it into our mouths. If that's an offensive thing to you, then there are other countries that you can go to. You can stay at your home. You can suppress it when you are in public. You can do that at home if that becomes the case. But you can't expect me to be totally okay with that, because there is a sanitary component. There is a logical component that comes with using utensils. It's not just a cultural difference. It is a logical, philosophical, cultural difference that differentiates me and my society and my culture from the one from whence you came. If you want to erase society and culture and just become a blob of nothingness, then you can be okay with that, but I am not.
I'm really looking forward to my debate with Vivek Ramaswamy, because part of what we're witnessing is the breakdown of reason, because rationality has been weaponized against normal people. And I don't just mean the GLBTQ or DEI stuff. In particular, this American dream shit, this propositional nation stuff. This is the line that it's been for 70 years or more, is the America is a nation for anybody who wants to become an American. And then once you accept that that's the case, the definition of what an American is, like, you're just constantly moving goalposts and changing definitions, and it doesn't matter. None of the
then that's the thing. Like, America 70 years ago accepted, the white majority population of America accepted, okay, that sounds reasonable. That sounds like something that is reasonable. And from that whole wellspring of accepting that whole premise, we become more than ever disassociated, depressed, impoverished, people that are fighting for table scraps from that one proposition because we've thought that everyone would behave and act fairly. That was our mistake. That was the mistake that we have made because, unfortunately, people cannot accept the social contract. They cannot accept that propositional idea. The only people that are possible of accepting that propositional idea, if you were to put it in any other country on this earth, would absolutely reject it. But the ones that tried it and tried it and tried it have only wound up with negativity and disgust against the people that accepted it in the first place. And that is absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong and disgusting. And that's why we should reject it, because no one else would accept it. If you went to any other country, go to any other country on this earth and ask them if there is a proposition of which I can join you if I just put my feet in the soil and grind and grind and grind. No, people have things that make things in them. I can't be a Japanese citizen. I accept that. I can't be a Russian citizen. I accept that. Truly, I can't be an Italian citizen. I accept that. I accept I'm American because I believe in that flag behind me. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the rule of law. I believe in cultural norms. Saying please, thank you, believing in the American dream of a white picket fence and all those kinds of things. But it's not something that you can just say everyone on this earth can achieve this thing. You're trying to guarantee outcomes for everyone, again. And it's not the case. People are born in times and places to achieve what they can in those times and places. It is not meant for one place to be taken over. Only in the times of Alexander and Rome and the medieval times, we've tried to develop past that, of we don't have to use pointy sticks and objects to force our wills onto people. And we thought we were done with that. But that's quickly becoming not the case. So the proposition is that those people who come here, there are some standards of which you have to abide. It can't just be everyone. There have to be standards, and you have to accept them. Otherwise, you can't truly call yourself this thing. There are definitions. Definitions. It's not nebulous. Definitions make things things. Nebulousness makes things less of what they were, of what they are. An American is a concrete definition with statutes and cultures and laws and customs. That's that.
Definitions matter. Once you accept the core proposition that anybody can come here and just be here, it stops mattering what here is.
And then that leads into nihilism. That leads into self-destruction. That leads into self-hatred. That leads into so many things of which are negative and evil in this world. Everyone has a time and place of which they belong, and everyone deserves a time and place of which they can belong. A family, a home, a country, a people. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Where it becomes a problem is when you want to encourage and say, you must accept my home and my culture and my people at the point of a barrel of a gun or the point of a stick or the signing of a pen. And if you don't, I will kill you, or I will take you over, or I'll rape your children, or any of those evil, disgusting things that I've seen on the internet from people that are no idea what being an American is, who only want the benefits that come with it and none of the sacrifice. And it's disgusting, and it's terrible, and it's nihilistic, and it's evil. It's awful. I don't know how I can describe this any more than just saying If you want to believe in something, you need to have a sense of belonging to something. It can't be nebulousness. It can't be nihilism. That doesn't build anything. I've gone on long enough.
So I'm really looking forward to my debate with Vivek Ramaswamy, because he will be able to see in person that all the words, all the rational arguments, and the paragraphs about what an American is, and the paragraphs about how anybody with a dream can do anything and become anything, he'll see in person that I don't care about what an Indian says. I'm not willing to have a discussion about the definition of what an American is. I'm not interested in hearing somebody else's proposal for what an American is. Everybody knows what an American is. If there's a degree or two of variation between Americans, what an American is, it doesn't matter. Anytime you try to argue in good faith with somebody who wants to steal from you, you try to argue in good faith with somebody who is not going to Iron Man your arguments. Mm-hmm. You're going to give them every intellectual consideration possible. They're going to give you none. Anytime you even open your...
Right. And that's... I hate that the realization is coming to this. I hate that. I hate that for people in the United States, that unfortunately it can't be a kumbaya world. It can't be a place where we all accept each other and work as best we can with each other. Because how do you do that? How do you do that? If resources perhaps were not a limited supply, and energy wasn't a limited supply, maybe I could see that being a possibility. But there are scarcity of resources. And so there's always going to be someone trying to get something up on you for something. And the more differences that you have, the more that you have to be like, they are opposed to every single thing that I stand for. And you can't trust that those people are going to argue from a place of goodness, because they will already have that chip on their shoulder. Everyone already has that chip on their shoulder. You can't get rid of it. If you've ever heard the song "Everybody's a Little Bit Racist," hey, unfortunately for the world, that is the case. That is the case. You can say that you're not. You can say that you've never been. But your first automatic assumption of someone is going to be something. Perhaps negative, perhaps positive. It doesn't matter. You have definitions for things. You have them already set. You have them already ready. What is up to the person in front of you is to disprove all of those things on an individual basis. It can't start from a blank slatedness for every single person. You have to have these definitions of what someone is, and then you can change those definitions as that person is revealed more and more to you. As more information becomes available, you can change your opinion. But in the majority of cases, you can't go with this intellectual debate kind of thing. In this mental, we all have to live up here in mental world. It's not reality, and it's not the American experience to live in the mental world. What the founders did was make a practical world, a practical way of being, a practical existence for as many people as possible in this country. They didn't try and go into the idealistic everything. They understood the nature of man. The nature of man is that there is individualism, and that they claw for resources, and that not everyone can get what they want all at once. And that's a sad fact. They understood that there are sacrifices that have to be made, and there are assumptions that have to be put forth in order for a country to exist. It is not something that you can just out of thin air. Intellectualism on its own should be a sin. It should be a sin. if it's not already, because it takes into account nothing else besides the being of mentality, and that is all. There is more to a human than the mental apparatus. There is more to a human than debate and winning arguments. And so I liked Vivek. I really did, but this is making a lot of sense. It's making a lot of good points on this. And as I've observed and as I've seen, the unfortunate thing is that it's just not possible. I just don't think it's possible you can't, the blank slated world is a world of utopianism or dystopianism, depending on how you put it. It doesn't matter. Everyone comes with predispositions. It is up to that individual to disprove those predispositions, which is why I don't understand which is why I'll get on tangent for a second there. Like trans people, you have to conform to their worldview. You have to give them the name that they choose to be, even though that is objectively not reality, and you can observe that, and you look at that, and you are like, there is something there that just doesn't make sense. And they've tried and they pushed this. And finally, we're pushing back on this. And hopefully there's more pushback on this, because we need to get back to objective reality and understanding human nature. It is not to be in intellectual, mental kingdoms. It is to be down here on the earth, on the ground, with communities, trust and building and relationships, and Joe Schmo and John the plumber and Larry the farmer, as well as Sally in accounting. It's not Mr. PhD, Dr., Mr. Title this, title that. I have 4 MBAs and a degree in biotechnical science. That's not what reality is. That's not what the American spirit is. It's not what the American experience is. That's not what it is.
Your mouth to do anything that's not derision, you're losing. You're accepting their proposition that what you know, the same way you know that the sky is blue, what an American is, when you accept that your knowledge of that can be affected by some.
And this gets into the idea of common sense. The idea of common sense. Like, what is the premise of common sense? Like, yeah, the sky is blue. Technically, on a superficial, kind of level, it's orange and some other kind of. Okay, that's fine at a mental level, but not every single person on this earth is going to be able to look at this sky that they have in their eyes is blue. They're not at that developmental spiritual level of getting that yet. And it doesn't matter how much that you want to bring them out of the cave, out of Plato's cave, to bring them up to the surface, if that is your true goal, Vivek. You can't do that for everyone. Some people aren't ready for it. Is the duty of man to bring every single person up on the surface of the cave, to get them out of that? Even if it hurts them and hurts their families? I mean, you have to understand how that hurts and affects society. Society is good to exist and to bring life and to bring happiness and joy. Now, there is something to be said at giving way to falseness over giving way to truth. But there is also something to be said about living a life of contentment. There are some people that can break out of those boundaries and can go in those distances, but I just don't know if it can be everyone. I think the question here is everyone ready to be brought out of the metaphorical cave? That is what Vivek says that he is okay with doing. And I don't know if it is. If everyone wants to be an engineer, who wants to be a farmer? If everyone understands all these differences of the sky not being exactly blue, behind the science, technical, all these things that develop, then who wants to be a farmer? Who wants to make all these things that are necessary for daily life? Who wants to work at McDonald's? Who wants to do any of that? Nobody. Nobody. We need people to, and we don't want to all be technocrats. I'm thinking about it now, and I'm just like, I think, it's not everybody that has to be out there. Some people can, and some people you can drag, but you can't drag everybody. You can't drag everybody. And that's the point.
Somebody's paragraph, you're already losing. So these people, when they come to you, when you see them, the only thing you should have to say to them is, hey, faggot. That's it. That's all you need to say. You don't need to say anything else. Within your community, within your Discord, within your friend group, whatever, you can have whatever discussion you want. But if it's an outsider who's here telling us how to do business, that's not in the game plan. That's not part of the show. That's not happening. All right? So I'm not saying you need to not think about these things and not talk about them with your friends, whatever.
Sure.
But when an outsider comes here, gets in your face, and starts throwing definitions at you, and you got to Google shit, no, we're not doing that. You're getting called a slur. I don't know which one, whichever one I feel like saying at the moment. You're getting called a slur. Doesn't he wear shoes that are too big for him?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I understand the premise. I understand the concept. Because there's only one way of defending your mental territory, and you only have one way of preserving your community. If your community is a happy community, if your community is happy and it is content and it is okay and it is fine and it is existing and is prosperous and is, if it's not on a downward trajectory, you shouldn't be okay with someone coming in from outside of your village and being like, hey, you guys are doing it all wrong because over here, this is how we've done it, and I've got a whole thing that I can tell you about. No. I kind of agree with that. I mean, I understand on a very explicit level what he's saying, but I do kind of agree if you want to preserve a community. And a community is important, especially if we're still going to go down the route of being like, some people can have communities and other people can't have communities. And if you're going to go that route, then yes, absolutely. That is what you have to do. You have to do that because it's the only way to preserve your community. Because everyone else is allowed to have one and you're not. And we're not going to be okay with that. And I'm on board with that 100%. If we're going to allow people to have communities, then it becomes different. If the premise is that we allow people to have individual communities and all people that are communicating are allowed to have those communities, that we're all starting from this baseline of all these things, then sure. Then maybe, we don't need to be throwing around the slurs, maybe. But if we are not allowed to, what else can be done? What else can be done? There's nothing else that can be done except to do that. Because we've been denied the ability. And you have to try and find your footing as it exists. Otherwise, you will be trampled on. You will be trampled on. And your ideas will end up in the ground. They will end up in the dustbin of history because someone intellectually badgered you to death. And I'm not okay with that.
Yo. Oh, man. That sucks, dude. Yo. Vivek told me that he would come on the show if I read all 4 of his books. That's a real thing, by the way. Like, that's you can come on my show if you watch the iDubbbz documentary. It's just funny. For the guy that's about having good faith debate, the guy that's about an exchange of ideas, if that's what he's about, right? Telling me I have to do homework in order to talk to him. I have to sit through his 4th grade brainwashing here about how
Vivek.
good. Believe that. My next book,
Vivek.
They're Good, by J.K. Rowling.
I think the world is a complicated place, but it's not all doom and gloom. Accepting that it is all doom and gloom only helps make it worse. Pretty fucking brainlet take, I guess, but even the little guy's got to keep his head up. There is no great man theory. It is a collection of many small people moving for greatness. That and Indians kind of stink.
That is indeed a brainlet take, and that is why it is good and true. Because at the bottom end of the spectrum, you have the people who are just as smart as the people at the top end of the spectrum. It is the case that every day, even some of the worst ones, are gifts. They are gifts. Every day is a gift from a creator who loves you and wants the best for you. When you get into the weeds and you start thinking, what do we do? What do we do? What's going to happen? It's easy to black pill because it is such a complicated problem. Everything is interdependent and constantly evolving, not to mention rigged, that a solution is hard to be seen. But in terms of your actual life, when you close Twitter and you go back to reality, you have people, you have the air outside, you have just being here, just being alive. Like there's a whole world out there. There's a whole world out there, guys.
Wow.
And it is the one we have. It's the very best. It's unbelievable. It's filled with joy and opportunity. It's the best thing. It's the only thing you have. You probably should all enjoy it to the max.
Yeah.
Live it to the max, bro. Yeah. And yeah, Indian people do stink. Okay, we'll get this going. I gotta figure out this chair situation. This thing is not one. I probably need an actual chaise lounge thing where I'm like laying down.
My goodness. Wow. What a great ending. That was spot on. That was perfect. That was so good. I am quite blown away by that. I mean, it's true. There's a lot of bad things in the world. There's a lot of badness. There's a lot of despair. But there's also a chance and an opportunity and a possibility and a love that we have for adventure, that Americans have for adventure, and that we try to have for each other. Because in this adventure of life, we all stumble and we all fall, and the best thing is knowing that if that is to happen, that someone would have your back and you could persevere and move on and achieve great things. And it's about individual resilience, and you have to keep moving on. You are here for a purpose and for a reason, and we are here together by the Almighty Creator of all that is existence. And it is absolutely something that is important that we continue to put forth. And we are creators. We are creators. Americans are destined to be and always will be, of the highest sense, creators. And we are people that, I'm going to switch to full screen here, that really have spirit. We have the spirit of when the odds are against us, and I've said this before, we keep on trucking. We keep on going. We keep on moving. We don't stop. We don't give in. We don't give up. We hope for a better tomorrow for ourselves, for our children, for our futures, for our posterity, to move among the stars, to explore them, and become interstellar beings. And that's what we are. And it's easy to forget that in a world that we have today. But you got to keep focused on the positive. You got to keep focused on the things that you can control. And there are things that we can control. And we are doing, as long as you are doing your best to control them and move in that direction every single day, the universe will take notice that you are giving an effort. And I believe it will give you what you need when you need it, and give you challenges when you are ready to be challenged. But besides that, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you have really taken something from it. If you did, please leave a like, comment, tell me how I did on the video, if you like the commentary, if you disagree with it, if you hate it, if you hate my guts. I'd appreciate any feedback that you have. But in the meantime, you guys take care, enjoy yourselves. I do have a donation link. Do not feel like you have to. I've only put it in there because I just feel like, I'd like to do this. I'm currently in between jobs right now. But I haven't been able to, I'm still trying to work as best I can and grind and all that kind of stuff. But you got to do what you got to do. But if you guys see fit to do that for me, I would absolutely be appreciative and would not spurn any support. But and I, of course, want to try and support the people that support me as well. So please keep on keeping on, keep on trucking, keep on moving, do your best, behave humanly. This is the Human Advocate. I advocate for humans, for humanity, and for you. And I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you. Have a good one. See ya.